how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Here's our show for tonight. A Russian strike in eastern Ukraine has killed at least 49 people. Reports say that the Ukrainian President Zelensky put out a message on Telegram. He said that Russia had targeted a grocery store. He called Moscow's actions genocidal aggression. Last we checked, Russia has yet to comment on the matter. Remember, Russia has denied hitting civilian targets. This is perhaps the bloodiest day in this war in the last few months. Just as we speak of war fatigue, about weapons running out, about money running out, at least 49 people are killed inside a grocery store. Today's news serves as a reminder that as long as this war rages on, blood of innocents will be spilled. This is our cover story tonight on Gravitas. Is the Russia-Ukraine war entering a new, dangerous phase? We move on to tell you what's happening in Sikkim. At least 14 people have died, an entire village has been washed away. What caused such devastation? Was it just a cloudburst? We tell you what could have led to this disaster. The troll army is at it again. This time they are attacking a superstar once called the most beautiful woman in the world. Now they are saying Aishwarya Rai looks too old. It's time we tell the troll army to mind their own business. If your child watches YouTube regularly, I have a warning for you. A bug on YouTube allowed porn to be uploaded unchecked. Some videos are still circulating. It's time for YouTube to tighten its security. Some shocking visuals have emerged from Kenya. Schoolgirls, at least 90 of them, are paralyzed. Why? How? What caused this? We don't know. Another mystery illness. This cannot and should not be ignored. All this coming up on the show tonight. We begin today's show with a big development from the Ukraine war. At least 49 people have died in a Russian attack on a village in Kharkiv. Among them, a 6-year-old boy. Ukrainian officials have called it possibly the deadliest wartime attack on civilians in months. A Russian missile struck a grocery shop. It took place just after 1 p.m. local time, an attack on an ordinary grocery store, that too in a village which is not on a front line in this war. Footage from the site in the immediate aftermath showed bodies strewn across the road. Rescue workers walked through the rubble looking for any signs of life. The people around the area looked dazed, shocked at the sheer brutality. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was attending a summit with European leaders in Spain, condemned the attack. He wrote on social media, and I quote, "Russian terror must be stopped. All those who help Russia circumvent sanctions are criminals." Zelensky also renewed calls for allies to provide Ukraine with more air defenses so his troops can protect the country from Russian terror. Russia has yet to comment. And as a war-torn country faces Russian terror, there is one question that echoes in the corridors of power in Kyiv. How long does Ukraine have? How long can Ukraine stay in this war? How long does it have before it runs out of ammo to defend itself, leaving it helpless and defenseless? As the war drags on, the West finds itself draining its arsenal of weapons. Alarm bells are going off. NATO wants to ramp up production of weapons. Earlier this week, it urged member nations to do so. Yes, more weapons. But as NATO scrapes the bottom of the barrel to satisfy Ukraine's unending appetite for more arms, it's clear that NATO's own security wall is crumbling. The Western world is struggling with weapon shortages. This is not news, but it gains significance today, especially when US funding for weapons procurement for Ukraine failed to find a place in a stopgap spending bill within the US Congress. Now uncertainty looms over the future of US aid to Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky has a crisis at hand. He's grappling with Western war fatigue. Ukraine's conflict with neighboring Russia has dragged on for a grueling 20 months. It has put pressure on Western nations to continue supplying weapons to the war-torn country. Ukraine supporters have flooded the country with weapons in a bid to bolster its defenses. So how much has the Western world sent to Ukraine? The US is the largest contributor, having committed $46.6 billion worth of weapons. Next is Germany and the United Kingdom, having pledged nearly $19 billion and $7.3 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine, respectively. Norway, Denmark and Poland follow. In June this year, the US also announced additional security assistance for Ukraine worth $500 million. The military aid from Western nations to Ukraine includes tanks, combat vehicles, air defense systems, long-range artillery, howitzers, anti-tank weapons, drones, etc. It includes sophisticated tanks like the American Abrams tanks, the British Challenger tanks, the German Leopard tanks. They have helped Ukrainian troops fend off Russian aggression to a certain extent. It also includes combat vehicles like the Stryker armored fighting vehicle. These have been used in Iraq and Afghanistan. In air defense systems, the US has given the Patriot missile system. It is highly sophisticated, requires specialized training for Ukrainian soldiers. S-300 missile systems have also been sent. Among long-range artillery is the HIMARS. They are believed to have been central in Ukraine's success in pushing Russian forces back on the south last year. Kyiv has also received drones that have helped in surveillance and targeting. Turkey has sent the Bayraktar TB2 armed drones. These have a track record in Syria and Iraq. And finally, the US has also announced support in providing advanced fighter jets, including the coveted F-16 jets to Ukraine. The Biden administration has sent a substantial amount of equipment through the Presidential Drawdown Authority. Under this scheme, military gear that is already in US inventory is pulled from the inventory and then sent overseas, in this case to Ukraine. The US funding for Ukraine has mostly come from the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or USAI. But guess what's happening now? According to the US Department of Defense, as of October 3rd this year, there is no more funding left for newly manufactured military hardware. The only hope is some $5.4 billion worth of hardware from the US inventory that can be sent to Ukraine. But what happens once that is gone? Well, the US Department of Defense hopes to replace it with new gear, and the department has about $1.6 billion on hand to accomplish that. But the department is requesting more funding to help replenish its stocks. It has been careful so far in drawing down its own military hardware because it doesn't want to put its own readiness at risk. Now, despite all this, Ukraine continues to ask for more. I mean, the sheer volume of artillery that Ukraine demands is nothing short of staggering. It is not clear how many shells are fired by Ukrainian troops in the war, but a US defense official told American media in July that they typically fire between 2,000 and 3,000 shells per day. This number may have fluctuated, but it gives us an idea into Ukraine's current use of weapons. And it's not just the US that is running low on its stockpile and money for Ukraine. The UK is also short of weapons for Ukraine. Reports say the British military top brass want other countries to fill the gap. But the truth is, few countries are in a position where they can help Ukraine more than they already have. In Europe, Hungary continues to block a €500 million European Union tranche of arms and ammunition. And a European official told another news publication earlier that no EU state can contribute any more weapons from their own stockpiles without endangering their own security. Moreover, the Western tanks and vehicles were supposed to turn the tide in favor of Ukraine on the battlefield. Instead, Russian troops have reportedly turned the battlefield into a graveyard of Western tanks, trucks, The Ukrainian troops suffered heavy casualties during their counter-offensive campaign. The Russian military has shared footage showing destroyed Western equipment abandoned by Ukrainian troops. If modern, sophisticated Western weaponry are yet to make a significant impact on the Ukrainian battlefield, how long does NATO plan to keep supplying them to Ukraine? If they are indeed ramping up production, how much time will it take before Ukraine can actually start using them? In contrast, Russia seems to have swiftly mobilized its own wartime economy to replenish its own stockpiles. So how much time does Ukraine truly have to ensure its survival in this war? Today's incident is a reminder, a stark reminder of how bloody this war can get, and that an unending supply of weapons will only add to more loss of life. Our next story tonight is from Sikkim, a small state nestled in the eastern lap of the Himalaya range and the home of Kanchenjunga, the third highest peak on earth. But as I speak, the state is reeling, hit by a deadly tragedy, a natural disaster of massive flash floods which have ravaged the region after a sudden cloudburst. The deluge has submerged vast swathes of land. It has washed away roads and bridges, triggered catastrophic landslides, and collapsed countless homes. The question is, how did it all start? What caused these flash floods? A cloudburst or a glacial lake outburst? Also, were scientific warnings ignored? Did the authorities disregard red flags? These questions are complex. We'll keep the answers simple. The story begins on October 4th, Wednesday. During the early hours that day, the Teesta River in Sikkim witnessed an unexpected surge in water flow. The swollen river started roaring through sparsely populated areas, caking every inch of its path in mud and debris and leaving little standing. What caused the river to overflow? Well, scientists are attributing it to the bursting of the South Lonak Lake's banks. This is the lake we're talking about. It is a glacial lake located in Sikkim's far northwestern region. It is also one of the 14 potentially dangerous lakes that is susceptible to a glacial lake outburst flooding, or GLOF. We'll explain what that concept is in just a bit. First, let's discuss why the lake's banks got ruptured. The government of Sikkim said it was due to incessant rains followed by a cloudburst. On your screens now is an official statement. It reads, and I quote, "Cloudburst-induced water surge around Lonak area led to flash floods in low-lying areas of the Teesta Basin, causing rise of water levels." That's what the government is saying. This is the official version, but some experts say that a glacial lake outburst could also have been a trigger. Now, what does this mean? To understand that, we'll first have to understand what glacial lakes are. Glacial lakes are basically large bodies of water that sit in front or on top or beneath a melting glacier. They're mostly made up of unstable ice or sediment composed of loose rocks and debris. This composition makes the lake very dangerous. If the boundary around such bodies breaks, huge amounts of water rushes down mountains. And this causes flooding in downstream areas as well. This phenomenon is called a glacial lake outburst, or a GLOF. Look at this map now. It shows you what causes this glacial lake outburst. It can be triggered by several reasons. It includes earthquakes, landslides, avalanche, high temperatures, and extremely heavy rains. Glacial lakes can begin to overflow due to any of these reasons. And in the case of the South Lonak Lake, some say the trigger was heavy rain. The veracity of this claim is still being assessed, but it's a fact that this lake is susceptible to an outburst. And that's a big concern. According to reports, the lake had been under observation by government authorities for several years. A report by Sikkim's Forest and Environmental Department even found that the lake's area had significantly increased in the last 4 decades. In these 4 decades, its size and water volume apparently increased by nearly 145%. Look at these images now. They've been released by ISRO. They show how the lake's size decreased after the flash floods. On the 28th of September this year, the lake's area was somewhere around 167 hectares. On October 4th, it had reduced to just 60 hectares. A clear indication of how much of the lake's water got drained out. These assessments beg some bigger questions. How many glacial lakes are actually there in India, and how many of them are vulnerable to outburst floods? Now, according to the National Disaster Management Authority, or the NDMA, there are around 7,500 glacial lakes in India's Himalayan range. Out of this, around 10% of such lakes are located in Sikkim alone. And nearly 25 such lakes are assessed to be at risk. These figures have been estimated through the NDMA's remote sensing techniques. Look at this report now. It says around 15 million people worldwide face the risk of sudden flooding from glacial lakes. 15 million. Guess where half of these people live? In India and Pakistan. Yes, according to journal Nature, nearly half of the world's population susceptible to glacial lake outbursts lives in India and Pakistan. These are basically people who live within 50 kilometers of a glacial lake or 1 kilometer of a river that originates from a glacial lake and could be impacted. These findings are alarming. In the case of the Lonak Lake, more so. Why? Because reports say that multiple government agencies and scientific expeditions had red flagged the vulnerability of the lake several times in the past. This includes a 2019 report by Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority itself. It had warned that the lake was highly vulnerable to a glacial outburst. Perhaps it's time, high time, that we start taking these warnings seriously. Lives are at stake. Before I begin my next story, I want you to watch a video. It's from a school in Kenya. Watch this.
Wataleta siasa wangekaa tu pale.
Yako vibaya. Poleni mtapona. Poleni.
You saw that, a bunch of schoolgirls struggling to walk. Why? Did they get injured? No. Their condition is being attributed to a mysterious illness, an illness that has affected scores of school kids in the town of Kakamega. According to reports, this alleged illness was first reported at the St. Teresa's Eregi Girls High School. It affected around 95 students. All of them had to be admitted to hospitals for medical attention. All these students either struggled to walk or had paralysis in their legs or experienced convulsions. The urine and blood samples of these students have now been sent to labs where the alleged disease is being examined. In view of the health of the students, local authorities have shut the school temporarily. But questions remain. Why exactly were these students unable to walk? What happened to them? What exactly is their current condition? Was it really a mysterious illness or a simple case of mass hysteria? Those of you familiar with the Salem witch trials would already know that mass hysteria really is. It's a mass psychogenic illness, essentially an illness with a psychological origin rather than a physical one. It refers to an outbreak of unusual and uncharacteristic behaviors, thoughts, feelings or health symptoms that are shared among a group of people. People who get affected by mass hysteria mostly do the following. 1. They typically believe something specific has triggered their symptoms. 2. They don't have an underlying health condition that could have triggered those symptoms. 3. They wouldn't behave in that way on a regular basis. 4. They may share an extreme fear of an exaggerated or non-existent threat. Case in point, a recent story from Iran. In March this year, there were reports that dozens of schools in Iran were poisoned. The incidents were primarily reported in the city of Isfahan. Initially, the poisoning was suspected to have been done by miscreants, but as days passed, some researchers pointed at mass hysteria as a possible cause. They said the students concerned were suffering from a mass psychogenic illness, that the very fear of getting poisoned made most of them fall sick. That said, independent bodies are yet to determine the exact story. But what's happening in Kenya does bear an eerie resemblance to the story from Iran that I just told you. At least that's what some observers are saying. Local media in Kenya disagrees with this version. They say the illness could be due to an electrolyte imbalance. What's that? An electrolyte imbalance occurs when the mineral content of the body is too low or too high. The common signs of this imbalance include dry mouth and thirst, restlessness, confusion, difficulty with cognition, muscle weakness or spasms, numbness or tingling, fatigue, heart palpitations, nausea and vomiting. So what exactly is the real cause? Mass hysteria, electrolyte imbalance, or a mystery illness? An illness unknown to mankind. We'll have to wait for Kenyan authorities to give us an exact answer, but last we checked, they were following protocol and conducting tests on samples collected from students. Our advice to them is that if the students are indeed suffering from any kind of mystery illness, then they must share the nature of this illness with the world at the earliest. They must tell us how it originated, how lethal is it, and how does it spread? Is it contagious? So that we can develop an appropriate treatment at the earliest. This next story is going to shock all parents. If you have a teen in the house or maybe a child who knows his way around the internet, sit up and listen. YouTube is letting people upload porn on its platform in spite of a policy which forbids pornographic content on the platform. Reports say that an alleged bug was letting porn videos pass through and was hiding the video from the content moderators. So the question is YouTube's security wall crumbling down? Will YouTube turn into a pawn shop? Our next report has the details.
Google owned YouTube. One of the biggest video sharing platforms is now becoming a platform for porn. YouTube has been through its own share of controversies. This time, a bug has caused havoc in its security system. How? The error is letting people upload pornographic videos and keep them posted for weeks. Imagine this: porn is being allowed to be uploaded and stay on YouTube for weeks. YouTube is known for its copyright policies and video regulations, but one bug is all it took for pornographic content to make its way to mainstream. Will YouTube turn into a porn shop? How is this possible? Reports say that a user tagged a certain media while uploading a pornographic video. That move hid the video from the content moderators and enabled the video to stay on the platform undetected. Reports say that hackers discovered the bug and exploited it. To stop pornographic content from spreading, YouTube says it has now fixed the bug issue, but some videos still remain on the platform. YouTube says that we are aware that a small number of videos may have remained on YouTube following a channel termination. We're working to fix this and remove the content from the platform. But this is not a new problem for the video sharing platform, although YouTube has had its strict no nudity policy for its videos since the start. In 2018, users managed to bypass the restriction and posted porn on the site. First, they uploaded adult content on the platform and then set the video into the private mode feature. The feature partially concealed content of the videos that let users share the video for free and make money out of it. The simple solution would have been to scrap the private mode feature, but reports say that it would have deprived users the option of an easy way to store their videos online. After such instances, YouTube has taken steps to establish its community guidelines. In 2022, YouTube removed Pornhub's official channel. This is a pornography website, over violations of its guidelines. YouTube justified how seriously it takes its rules and said that we enforce our policies equally for everyone, and channels that repeatedly violate or are dedicated to violative content are terminated. Then why does YouTube keep playing host to porn on its site? Why are people able to bypass its security wall? Should YouTube have better checks in place? For now, we would say don't let your kids watch YouTube.
Who decides how you look? The answer is simple. It should be you and you alone. But I have been compelled to ask this basic question tonight because of what's happening. Paris Fashion Week just wrapped up. Indian actor Aishwarya Rai Bachchan made stunning appearances on the runway. She made heads turn in a majestic golden shimmery gown. She looked every bit ethereal, to say the least. But look at what people told her on social media. It disgusts me to read out these comments, but I have to. Plastic beauty. You are naturally ugly. One said, and I quote, "Oh God, look at her fatty cheeks, looking so horrendous." Another said, "She looks so old." Let me read out another one. "I used to like her a lot, but she isn't aging gracefully. Why can't she keep her weight intact? There is something called diet and exercise." These comments were made about the Aishwarya Rai, who was once crowned Miss World, once called the most beautiful woman in the world. Now she's being humiliated on social media for her looks. I can keep going on, but I don't want to. I don't want to give these nasty comments any more traction. Yes, people on social media have always been mean. They feel they have the right to mock someone's physical appearance, ridicule them, call them out on weight, age, their sartorial choices. They feel a public figure has earned the right to be abused like this, but this time they have gone overboard, and we need to talk about it. Because their nasty comments are targeted towards women and women alone. Especially those women in their middle age. Oh, she has gained weight. Oh, she has lost weight. She is chubby. She is skinny. Her nose is fake. Her lips are filled. These are comments made about every woman in the public sphere. If only the same courtesy was extended to our male stars. Male celebs can be balding and aging, however they want. But have you heard any such comment about them? I personally haven't. Their bare bellies are to be proud of. Dad bodies have a separate fan base of their own. Their graying hair becomes sexy. Salt and pepper, they call it. The latest obsession of this mean army is Botox. To the mean army, Aishwarya Rai's cheeks apparently appear chubby. To the esteemed judges of social media, declare that she has got some tweakment done. In fact, some called her out for her Botox team. And they said that this Botox team, the so-called Botox team, should be fired. Well, we don't know if such a team exists. We don't know if the Bollywood megastar got any Botox, but we do know this. It's none of your business. What gives you the right to comment on her appearance? Let me be clear. This story is not about Aishwarya Rai or any other celebrity. It's about the troll army going after a woman's choice. If anyone, I repeat, anyone gets this so-called tweakment, who are you to police her? It's her face. She decides how she looks, how she wants to look. Don't like it? Don't stalk her on social media then. Don't look up her pictures. Don't watch her movies. Yes, you are entitled to your opinion, but a woman is under no obligation to hear it. There are professionals who make a living out of their looks. If they want to preserve their beauty, how is it harming you? If you had a choice and the privilege and the money, wouldn't you want the same? If a woman, any star, any veteran looks old, let me rephrase that, if she looks her age, social media and the social media police would age shame her. If she takes tweakments, social media would berate her. If she does nothing at all, social media would still find a way to target her. There is no winning. Netizens make humiliating comments and go about their business. Do they think of the person reading not one, but thousands of such comments at the end of their day? Indian actress Sridevi is no more with us. But her husband and producer Boni Kapoor made some alarming revelations recently. Flawless as she was, still in a bid to look better, Sridevi would go on no-salt diets. Because of this, she would experience blackouts. She was, in fact, following one of the same routines at the time that she died. So many public figures have been accused of getting tweakments or cosmetic surgeries, as if it's a crime. There's Sridevi, Rekha, Madhuri Dixit, Anushka Sharma, Priyanka Chopra. Some public figures have been vocal about it, some have chosen not to speak about it. We don't know if they actually got any treatment or not, but they have for sure received criticism for it. If a woman's face appears plumper or more youthful, you will see headlines about her getting Botox. If her wrinkles appear, you would say she deserves to play a younger actor's mother. But what about the male celebs? I don't see reports about hair transplants. I don't see any paps asking them about Botox, if any. I don't see before and after pictures being paraded on tabloids with leading male actors as targets. They're only getting younger and better with age, it seems. At the same Paris Fashion Week where Aishwarya Rai was age-shamed, another famous actor made headlines for being authentic. Do you recognize her? Pamela Anderson rock shows makeup free at 56. The former Baywatch star looked nothing like what you may remember her as, and that was the point. Look at Andy McDowell and Helen Mirren. They have been sporting natural grey hair. My point is simple. Aging is a privilege. You shouldn't have to look like who you were. You should be celebrated for who you are. Tweakment or no tweakment, it's none of your business. Moving on. Is Canada suffering or feeling remorseful? Is the Trudeau government finally recognizing the blunder it made, the misstep it took when it launched a diplomatic feud with India? Because in the face of growing backlash, it appears that the Canadian government is now dialing down, to the extent that Canada not only wants private talks with India, it has taken a step that India has long been urging it to take, and that is cracking down on Khalistani extremists on its soil. A small step in the right direction. This is the first arrest by Canadian law enforcement in connection with the vandalism of a temple in Canada. It follows a disturbing incident on August 12th. A temple in Canada fell victim to Khalistani vandalism. Vandals spray-painted the walls of the temple with pro-Khalistan graffiti as well as anti-India posters. The entire episode, the most recent in a series of acts targeting Hindu temples in Canada, was captured on camera. The affected temple is the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir, a prominent place of worship in Canada's British Columbia. It was even visited by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2015. CCTV footage from security cameras showed two people posting these posters on the doors and walls of the temple. One of the posters depicted Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar as a martyr. Nijjar, the same terrorist whose killing on Canadian soil has sparked the current tensions between India and Canada. Unfortunately, the temple defaced in August 14th incident could not be immediately identified. According to Indian media, the arrested person was charged with 2 counts of mischief and will be required to appear in court at a later date. Now, just a week ago, Trudeau said that he was serious about building closer ties with India. In a follow-up move, Canada's Foreign Minister Melanie Joly also expressed Ottawa's desire to engage in private talks with India as a means to resolve the current crisis. This shift in stance suggests that the Trudeau government has recognized the need to temper its tone. This vindicates India's long-standing position, the fact that Canada harbors Khalistani terrorists. Also, amid the ongoing diplomatic showdown, India has launched an extensive crackdown on Khalistani terrorism. India's stern message that it will not tolerate anti-India forces has yielded results. Now, the responsibility rests squarely on Canada's shoulders. The responsibility to defuse the situation and normalize its relations with India. The onus is on the Trudeau government to allay the fears of the Indian diaspora, as well as the massive population of Indian students in Canada. Given that Indian students constitute a substantial portion of foreign students in the country, and if the latest developments are any clue, Canada has been forced to re-evaluate its stance. Shifting our focus now to the United States, the White House is facing a unique problem. President Biden's dog, called Commander, is on a biting spree. Commander has now been pulled out of the White House. Reports say that one of the bite victims needed treatment from the White House medical unit. The White House has blamed the attacks on the stress of living in the premises. Officials have not disclosed the commander's current location yet. So what's the story of the first family's dog? Our next report has it all.
This is Commander, a 2-year-old German Shepherd. This pet is the Biden family's prized possession. But sadly, Commander has been taken away from the White House. Why? The U.S. Secret Service says that the German Shepherd has been involved in 11 reported biting incidents. Some experts say that the biting incidents could raise concerns of workplace safety and create tensions between the Secret Service and the Bidens. Commander's behavior has also created a dangerous work environment, as reports say that security agents were ordered to only go through certain entrances and not go to specific areas to avoid interaction with the German Shepherd. Agents had to communicate by radio about where the dog was and warn people to avoid the area. If you think Commander is the only unruly one, it's not true. Commander is one of the Biden's 2 German Shepherds. There is a younger dog named Major. Major was the first rescue dog to live at the White House. The pet was also involved in numerous biting incidents with Secret Service agents. Reports say that Major's wild behavior caused stress for the White House and strained their relationship with the Secret Service. How? Reports say that the agents were operating in an unsafe work environment due to the hazardous pet, which the first family had labeled as playful. A former Secret Service agent says that you can't bring a hazard into the workplace, and that's what is essentially happening with this dog. One time you can say it's an accident, but now multiple incidents is a serious issue. So, what makes the pets so violent? What makes them act out? Experts say that it's hard for pets to adjust to the White House life. You see, German Shepherds demand consistency and routine, and develop behavioral problems when deprived of those things. In the White House schedule, the pets are transported in cages each time the family makes an impromptu plan to their holiday home. The dogs see a different person walking them with a leash each day. The pets see too many different people on a daily basis. German Shepherds get disturbed by such drastic changes. Dog experts say that pet owners have to change their behavior first before you can even think about changing the dog's behavior. If they can't do that, the dog's never going to be able to be helped in their care. Although it could be a difficult period for the first family, experts say that the dog's removal is a good sign. The White House can now think about the well-being of the pet and make changes accordingly. Will Commander return to the White House? More importantly, will the White House create a more pet-friendly environment?
Exploring the cosmos showcases humanity's insatiable curiosity to explore the unknown. It's also about pushing the boundaries of our understanding of the modern space race, which is now entering an era of technological progress. Take a look at this next report.
Space, the final frontier, an inhospitable place, also the ultimate ground for the world's superpowers to show off their might. First, it was a tug-of-war between the erstwhile USSR and the United States. But of late, the Chinese have positioned themselves as a major spacefaring nation. But there's one country which is slowly but steadily carving out its place and fast catching up by showcasing its technological might with successful space missions. India, after successfully sending probes to as far as Mars and the Moon, is currently probing the Sun. Its Aditya L1 mission is all set to take the next big leap in space. It's not just about sending probes, but also having permanent bases. For the longest time, the Americans had the only space station, the International Space Station. However, that will be decommissioned by 2030. The Chinese space station, also known as Tiangong or Celestial Palace, has been fully operational since late 2022. Beijing now wants to double its size. But soon they'll have company, as India is planning to build a space station in the next 20 to 25 years.
Of course, we are looking at all those possibilities. See, with the success of soft landing on moon, our expectations are higher. We have a plan that in the near future we must start building a space station, starting with robotic operations, not really manned mission.
Sovereign space stations act as a nation's giant eye in the sky, providing constant surveillance and intelligence gathering capabilities. The race to establish these stations has significant military applications and far-reaching implications as countries compete for dominance in space. The race is clearly on. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Which place is the worst to buy a house? I'm talking about the developed world. A place where people can't afford groceries, self-hygiene products, where millions of kids sleep on floors or share beds with parents, where medical professionals are almost always on strike, where the cost of living crisis is so bad that it can cause premature deaths. No prizes for guessing, it's the United Kingdom. England has become the worst place to find a home. I'm not the one saying that, it's this report by the Home Builders Federation. Let me read out what it says. The UK is a very unaffordable place to buy or rent a home, and increasingly so. You see, house prices in the UK have been growing faster than incomes. British people spend exceptionally high proportions of their post-tax income on housing. England has far fewer dwellings relative to its population than others. The UK also has among the oldest housing in Europe. I'm quoting the report word for word. This is the condition of housing in the UK. This is the UK's housing crisis. Let's take a look at some figures now. As I just told you, Britons have to spend a fortune to have roofs on their heads. Renters are overburdened by housing costs. 1 in 5 people in England spend more than 40% of their income on housing. That equates to 20% of England's population. This is the second highest proportion in Europe, and more than double the EU average of 8%. England has far fewer dwellings relative to its population. For every 1,000 inhabitants, it has 434 homes. This is significantly fewer than France, which has 590, and Italy at 587. The OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, average stands at 487. For those who don't know, the OECD is a group of 38 nations, including most of the EU, the US, Japan, and Australia. You see, the UK is falling behind its peers. It has very less to offer. House hunting in England is an uphill battle, and if you do find a home, chances are it will be less affordable and of a far lower quality. The share of people living in poor quality housing in the UK is higher than the EU average. And by poor quality, I mean leaking roofs, damp walls, floors or foundation, rotting window frames. About 17.6% of Britons live in such homes. The EU average, meanwhile, stands at 13.2%. A significant portion of British houses were built before 1946. That is over 7 decades ago. The UK also has the lowest number of homes built since 1980. It falls behind Spain, France, Portugal, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, and Hungary on this front. Meanwhile, no-fault evictions have still not been banned, even though the Conservative Party pledged to do so back in April 2019. A no-fault eviction allows landlords to evict tenants without giving any explicit reason. And this is just adding to the burden of renters. Rents on new tenancies went up 12% in the year to August. This is the highest level in at least 9 years. You see, the housing crisis is just getting worse and worse. Why isn't the government doing anything about it? The construction industry is also frustrated by the government's stop-start approach. Some Tories have acknowledged the need for more building, but some voters are concerned about overdevelopment. Whatever it is, the clock is ticking on the United Kingdom. The old buildings are only going to get older. The population is also bound to grow. The UK's housing needs to keep pace with it. People already have had enough, and they have enough reasons to not live in the Great Britain. And the list keeps growing every single day. And with that, it's a wrap on Gravitas. Thanks for watching the show with me, Priyanka Sharma, leaving you with Gravitas images. I'll see you tomorrow.